Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my parents the peace of mind that my sister will be well cared for when they're gone? I'm 34. 10 years ago, I cut my sister out of my life after she cheated with my then fiancé. It was a 2-year-long affair that only came out when I caught them. She was pregnant and pretended it was the result of a one-night stand. They both knew I would never forgive them if I found out. And according to my ex, they were hoping I would love being an aunt and it would be easier to carry around behind my back if I was busy with a baby. They ended up getting married and having 2 kids. Then 3 years ago, my sister was involved in a car wreck and she suffered life-changing injuries. My parents stepped up to be her full-time caregivers as she will never be able to take care of herself. About a year later, her husband/my ex died, and their kids went to his parents while my parents became my sister's legal guardians. A few months ago, they started dropping hints about wanting me to step up after they're gone. Then a month ago, my parents called and asked me to meet them. They said they're worried what will happen to her when they're gone, or even if they are no longer able to care for her in a few years, and would I take over? Either by putting her in a care facility and making sure she's cared for, or physically taking care of her myself. I said no, that they needed to figure something else out. But I would never do a single thing for her again, and that hadn't changed because she became disabled. They took it okay at first. Then a week ago, when I had it called to change my mind, they said I was the a-hole for not doing it for them. To give them the peace of mind if nothing else. Because even after what she did, she's still their daughter, and she can't advocate for herself. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister burned down that particular bridge. Exactly. Plus, it's not your job to take care of someone who betrayed you. It is the same as it is for abusive parents who become elderly. No one should expect you to come back into their lives simply because they can no longer look after themselves. I think it is pretty horrible for the parents to put this guilt on Opie. Not an a-hole, but boy, talk about karma though. Without the backstory, it would probably be no a-holes here, because you're not required to care for siblings. Though I'd have said that would be the kind thing to do, because we all need help sometimes. / it take a village / whatever. But with a backstory, not an a-hole. She cheated and was never sorry. If she hadn't been in the accident, you wouldn't have ever interacted with her again. If your parents are asking you to make sure she's taken care of in a facility, it sounds like there's money available. They should set up a trust, or find a friend of your sister's to have them oversee the situation. You don't need to be dragged in. The sister also has kids and parents-in-law. If the kids are adults when she needs to go to a care home, they may be able to help. If not, or in addition, the in-laws could step in, as it involves the care of their daughter-in-law, so they're invested in the situation. Edit. Unless the grandparents are too old / have passed away, but then the kids may be adults who can help their mom in some way. Not an a-hole. They need to make arrangements now while they are able. Exactly. They can find an appropriate care home right now and get on the waiting list, because it's not something you can do quickly. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother out of my house for eating my wife's birthday cake? My male 28 brother Steve, male 23, moved in with me after he got kicked out of his college dorm for repeated violations. He's been staying with me, my wife, and our 6-month-old son for a couple of months now. My wife's birthday was days ago. I wanted to plan something special for her because this year has been very stressful for her. From studying to become a new mom, she barely found time for herself. I helped with all I could, but because this is her birthday, I decided to not let her burden herself with doing any work. On her birthday, I made reservation for a spa session she has been needing for so long, and I started getting everything done. The cake arrived from the bakery at 11 a.m., and I asked Steve and his buddy Jason to help with the decoration. I gave few tasks to get done while I went to take care of my son and get him to sleep. About half an hour later, I came downstairs and walked into the kitchen and saw that both Steve and Jason were having large pieces of my wife's birthday cake in separate plates. I asked what the heck was going on, and Steve told me to chill. I got mad seeing the cake split in half and 2 large pieces of it were gone. I flipped out and told him this wasn't for him to take. He said he and his buddy got hungry from helping me out and really wanted to try some of the cake because it looked delicious. I yelled at him about how awful and disrespectful what he did was, and he said I was overreacting since he left enough for me, my wife, and the guests. But it's not about that. He ruined the cake that I spent a week ordering from the bakery. I told him my wife wouldn't even like how it looked and won't even get the chance to blow the candles. He said, "I'm sorry, all right? But you're just being a little too dramatic about a piece of cake." Then Jason said, "Yeah, man. Besides, who cares about some stupid candle blow? Totally unhygienic. Is your wife like 5? I lost it. I kicked Jason out and told Steve to pack and leave my house. He said he couldn't believe I'd seriously tell him to get out over something so small. I told him this was my wife's birthday cake, and he said he could talk to her and explain, but I had none of it. I had him pack and leave. My father called and got all pissed, telling me I was out of my mind to kick my brother out with nowhere to go over a birthday cake. I live in the city where Steve's college is, but my family live far away. He and Mom told me to go pick Steve up where he's staying, but I said no. My actions were called disgraceful and immature for reacting this way over a cake. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. And we all see why Steve was kicked out of his dorm for repeated violations. He probably treated his dorm mates with the same respect he treated you and your wife. Based on Mom and Dad's response, it seems pretty obvious why the brother is the way he is. Rotten from the core, with zero empathy, and too dumb to realize the world does not rotate around him. Not today, OP. Though I would not have allowed him to move in the first place after getting kicked out of the university housing. Exposing my 6-month-old to that level of instability wouldn't have been a no-go. Seriously, I don't even have kids, and I'd be hesitant to take in someone who got kicked out of their dorm under those circumstances, because I'd be worried they wouldn't follow whatever house rules we might decide to set. I definitely wouldn't take them in if I had an infant or small child in the house. I get that some universities are super strict with their housing rules, and if someone had been kicked out just for smoking grass one time, that's a situation I might be able to sympathize with. But here, it was multiple violations, and I hope it doesn't specify what they were. But I'm willing to bet that if I saw that person's track record, I wouldn't feel comfortable having them live with me. Not stay home. I'm sorry, but in what world do you dig into someone's birthday cake before their actual birthday celebration? If Steve doesn't have somewhere to live, it's his own fault for making, what sounds like, a long series of bad decisions. Everyone knows you don't cut a birthday cake before the party. If this was the only food in the house and they were starving, that still would have made them a-holes. But to just blow it off like, meh, there's enough left for the birthday person, is just mind-boggling levels of failness. Good for you for kicking those two out. And thank you for taking such good care of your wife for her birthday. I'm sure at least the spa day turned out well. And hopefully she'll learn to laugh at this cake story. Not today, home. My actions were called disgraceful and immature. And what were your brother's actions called? It's very apparent he has boundary/behavior issues. Otherwise, he'd still be living in campus. He's supposed to be learning adult skills. Seems he's failing miserably. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to make a second meal during a family dinner? My husband and I hosted his family for dinner last weekend, and a situation arose where I am now being called out. I don't want to see what you all think. My husband's parents, brother, sister-in-law, and 3 nephews came to eat at our house. About an hour before dinner was served, my brother-in-law pulled me aside and said their youngest was being a picky eater and wouldn't eat the lasagna or salad I had made. So he asked me to make this specific dish for him. Not only was this not a quick dish, but it would take at least 3 hours to prepare. I said no, that I could throw on some fries for him, but no extra meal just for him. He told me he wanted his son to eat more than just fries, and that as the host, I should go the extra mile to make sure everyone has something. The dish? Chicken tenders and fries. Just fancied up and had a homemade ketchup accompaniment. The last time we saw the kid for dinner, he was eating spicy noodles and veggies. But now, all he eats is McDonald's or these homemade fries and tenders. I don't remember what side the recipe was for, but the tenders required an awful lot of prep and ingredients. We had most of it, but that was beside the point in my eyes. The whole dinner was tense because my husband's brother was pissed at me. The youngest didn't eat a single thing and demanded McDonald's because he was hungry and turned his nose up at fries. Then my husband and his brother ended up fighting because he disrespected me, and my husband wasn't having any of it. My husband's parents complained that I made things awkward. This was after dinner. I think it's ridiculous, but are they right? Am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not today haul. If parents have a child with a picky appetite and a rude attitude towards eating what's provided, it's the parents' responsibility to show up with food that their child will eat. Your brother-in-law knew his child would not eat anything provided. It was his job to take care of the matter, not yours. This kid is doing a great job of training his parents to jump when it says jump. But that doesn't mean that you have to join the same obedience school. My brother-in-law definitely blew me away with a request. The thing is, there was no warning ahead or anything. Because I don't mind if he didn't want lasagna. But to expect me to make a second meal an hour before dinner being served is so damn rude to me. It is rude. And what's worse is that he then doubled down on making you and everyone else uncomfortable before having a full-scale fight with your husband. Your brother-in-law owes you an apology. Not that I think you'll get one. I don't think you should enable them or help spoil the kid by making special accommodations. As parents, we should be teaching our children to be mindful and respectful. I remember some etiquette classes I had, and the polite way is always to show appreciation to your host. I just can't conceive parents who would demand a special meal be cooked for their kid at somebody else's house. This rude behavior is so out of line, and so many levels. Not today, ho. What an entitled bunch. I would not invite them again. Imagine people come for free food, and the guests are entitled enough to be mad for not making 10 different types of food. I mean, at least let Opie know early. Not today, ho. They could have brought the meal for him and heated it up. They just want to be a-holes and make you serve them. Now for the last story. Would I be the a-hole if I asked my grieving sister to leave the house she used to live in with her late husband? I'm female 30, currently pregnant. I have a sister, Emma, 48, who lost her husband to the big sea last year. Emma was and still is completely devastated by her husband's death. And when he passed in May, she immediately wanted to get rid of their house. As soon as she told me she wanted to sell, I jumped on the chance. Her house has literally been my dream house since I was a child, and Emma was very happy for it to stay in the family. She wanted to sell it to me for ridiculously cheap, but I insisted on paying only very little below market price. She was grateful. We set up the contract. The sale was officially closed in July. Very quick sale. Emma moved about 5 hours away into a flat in a fairly big city and seemed very happy there for the last year. Then her new therapist made her understand that she's never really given herself time to grieve properly. And so recently she asked me if she could move back into the house to find a way to say goodbye. I admittedly was hesitant. I'm due with my first child in October. I'm a single mom. I'm in the process of renovating some space for my daughter. However, I agreed and Emma has been living with me for about 4 weeks now. Things are not going great. She cries all day, every day, which she says is normal as per her therapist, but makes me really worry. She still acts as if the house is hers, rearranging my things, using things without asking. She keeps locking my cat in rooms because she doesn't like him. I overheard her on the phone with a friend saying she was excited for my daughter to arrive, because it'll mean she'll have the house to herself for a few weeks. When I confronted her, she said, "Aren't you moving in with mom for a few weeks so she can help?" I told her no. In fact, my mother-in-law would be staying with me. Ax doesn't want to be involved, but his mom does, however. And she's the sweetest, because mom is over 70 and physically can't do it anymore. Emma has been really weird since then, acting as if I wronged her somehow. When I asked her how long she'd be staying, she had no answer. I'm thinking of asking her to move out soon, so I can prepare for my child, but my parents have warned me against it, because Emma's still so fragile. And even my friend said that it really didn't feel right to throw out a grieving person who so obviously needs help. So would I be the a-hole? Edit. People are overwhelmingly implying my sister is being malicious, and I want to make it very clear that she isn't. My sister is not a horrible, mean-spirited person who just wants her home back. That's not it at all. And I would ask you to please stop inferring that. She is a deeply hurt, devastated person who just wants to find a way to reconnect with her late husband after she sold everything relating to him that she had out of grief and pain. If she was anything like some people in the comments suggest, I would not feel so heartbroken thinking I might have to kick her out. Info. Have you asked your sister to do a group session with her therapist? I'm guessing that therapist is not fully informed of this situation. Her therapist is a lovely lady. I've met her once before, actually. She did not suggest my sister move in with me. She suggested my sister moved on too fast. Emma literally sold absolutely everything relating to my brother-in-law because she couldn't handle the pain. She got rid of everything in a matter of weeks, and then moved far away so she wouldn't even have to see the places they've been at together anymore. My house is literally the only thing she's left that directly connects her to her husband in a significant way. Okay, you definitely need to do a joint session. Therapist will almost certainly light a fire under your sister's butt, which needs to be done. But it's best if it's not you doing the pushing. Not today, home. Question. Do you think the therapist really suggested she move back home? Or was this possibly a way for her to get back into her comfort zone? You're about to bring a child home, and that child is your priority. Tell your sister there are going to be some non-negotiable house rules. And if she's unable to adhere to them, then she should likely start to find another place. You paid for the home and welcomed her to grieve. This is not her new normal situation. You didn't sign up for that. Good luck with your baby. From what she told me, and I believe her therapist made her realize she pushed everything related to her husband away immediately because she couldn't handle the pain. She sold a house, got rid of almost all of their joint possessions, his clothing, books, art they collected, etc. She got rid of everything in a matter of weeks and then moved far away so she wouldn't even have to see the places they've been at together anymore. So yeah, I can see where the therapist is coming from. My house is literally the only thing she has left that directly connects her to her husband in a significant way. Not today, home. We set up the contracts. The sale was officially closed in July. Your sister acting as if that house still belongs to her is not justifiable. I don't care how much she's grieving or if it still holds sentimental value. She signed a contract. You should contact a lawyer and inform yourself about what could be done because she's not going to leave your house willingly. That's going too far. I'm not evicting my own grieving sister. I already feel bad just about talking to her about leaving. My family would also never let me live that down. Just because it is legally my house doesn't mean I don't want to help her get better. First story is titled, Update. Would I be the a-hole if I got help from a charity despite our joint income being very high? Original story. My husband, 38 male, and I, 24 female, have a combined income of $60,000 per year, or thereabouts. He is the big earner at $50,000, and I scrape by on a much lower income part-time job. He has always been very protective of his earnings, as he has worked very hard for the job he has. Since moving in together, we agreed to mostly keep our own expenses separate. If I buy things for the household, like shopping or cleaning, bills, etc., we split them in half. If I go to the store, I give him the receipt and he adds up how much of the items are shared and transfers me half. Anything we get for ourselves is paid for out of our own accounts, any personal expenses, etc. He does, however, pay a much higher proportion of the rent. This has worked fine for us. I do the majority of the housework to make up for not contributing as much and because I have more free time around my job. The issue we have right now is that I'm pregnant. And because of our agreement, I am expected to pay for anything medical, any bits I need for the duration of the pregnancy, or anything I will need post-birth for myself, out of my own money. He will pay for half of anything directly relating to the baby, but everything else is my responsibility. I am in a position now where I simply can't cover everything, and any conversation I have tried to have has ended up with the same outcome. I knew what the agreement was before we started trying. I genuinely thought that would be able to cover a lot more, or that some of the things are more to do with the baby than me, so he would help. But he has very clear definitions of what is for me and what is for the baby. Thanks to insurance, a lot of medical bills are covered, but having to buy a whole new bigger wardrobe and things I didn't originally think of that I need or will need, breast pads, maternity pads for after the birth, etc., are adding up. There is a charity nearby which would help to supply some of these things, but I feel absolutely awful turning to them when I know it would make such a small dent in my husband's wage, and he would be perfectly capable of covering it if he was inclined to. I just feel a bit desperate, but I am completely torn up as to the ethics of it. So would I be the a-hole for asking for some help from this charity? Edit. Please don't message me telling me to get a termination. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. The a-hole is your husband. This is financial abuse. Ding ding ding. Definitely financial abuse. Absolutely. And you should be asking yourself if it's okay for you to get help from a charity. You should be asking why you have to. I'm so sorry, but your husband is a real problem. You are being financially mistreated, and I'm not even going to touch the age gap. She should look up what the average surrogacy costs and charge him half of that for rent of her womb and permanent damage to her body. Or, leave the a-hole? I wonder how much you like paying court-ordered child support. Hold up. Your husband doesn't think you should help pay for the pregnancy? It's not like you just suddenly became pregnant on your own. He contributed just as much into making that child. He is just as responsible, and you need to hold him to that. You have to carry that baby in your body, and your body will handle the consequences, not his. But he still gets his child out of this. Not the a-hole, but your husband should be helping you. Finances seem to be its own problem in your relationship too. Actually, since he likes his relationship in legal terms, Google around and find out what child support average are during pregnancy and bill him. Your husband is mistreating you financially. It's something that happens often in relationships with large age gaps. Leave home now and go somewhere safe. And now for the update. I am sorry it has taken so long for an update, but I wanted to thank all the people who commented and sent links to helpful places. The short story is that I left. It has been very hard. I am a single mother and I have completely cut off from my ex-husband. He does not pay any money to me or for my baby. I did what people here recommended, and I spoke to the people at the charity and some of the women around the town. They were all horrified by it, and I think it was their reaction that made me properly realize I was not in a good position. They helped me. They helped me leave and find a shelter and a job. I'm able to stay until I have enough to rent a place of my own. One woman and her husband paid my medical bills, and I am so eternally grateful to them. I will never be able to repay them. I made them my child's godparents. To answer some questions left over from my last post, I did not initially want to have a baby, but my ex-husband convinced me that it was for the best. When I wrote the post, I was too far gone to change my mind and have no regrets now. And my child is the light of my life. I do not have any family left, as my parents died when I was young and my grandparents on my mom's side raised me until they passed away when I was in my late teens. I had nobody to turn to or to help me until I reached out to the people in the town. Thank you to you all again. Please, please, please get child support from this sperm donor. He wanted this child. He needs to pull his weight. It takes two to make a baby, and he absolutely does not deserve to get away scot-free for his actions. The monetary support will be worth it. You and your baby deserve it, so baby can have the best life possible. The only reason I would have to say no to that is that it would require him to know her mailing address, thus giving him an idea on where she is. Now, if I'm completely wrong, then please let me know. I don't know. It is of course up to Opie and what she does. Hopefully, she won't need him ever for anything. As far as I'm concerned, that donor isn't anything but someone who donated half of his DNA to another being. At least in my state, they have options for filling out the papers if you feel unsafe, where the ex does not get your address, and you can get a restraining order at the same time. Ex pays to court, and court distributes the money. I'm so happy for you and your baby that you escaped and are building a safe and happy future. Best of wishes to you, you brave soul and awesome mother. I'm glad everything turned out great for you, but he needs to pay child care. Not for you, but for your kid. It will be helpful for them when they are older. OMG, I just read the original post. That disgusting predator? I'm so glad that you got out and that you're okay. You seem very resistant to chase for alimony, etc. or have any contact. I'm wondering in word it is because you're afraid of something he might do. You don't have to answer, but that is what I am worried about. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law my baby's cancer is not about her? I have not told my husband's family, and that is because we really do not speak. My husband knows, but even with him we are unable to talk on a regular basis due to me being at the hospital and the time difference where my husband is and my emotional state. He understands this. He's supposed to be home in a few weeks, but a date is uncertain. Mother-in-law called me today and asked why I haven't called her to tell her about my daughter's diagnosis and why I haven't been updating her daily since I've been here. To which I said I have been emotionally and physically drained. That I could try my best to give her weekly phone call updates, but that daily updates via call and or text is not possible for me. We also don't have social media, but I probably wouldn't post updates there either. She then stated again that she wanted daily updates. No mention about if I needed anything or how I was doing. I proceeded to say, "The best I can do is try to give you a call with a daily update." I then told her I needed to get back to my baby's room as I had already stepped out for longer than I would have liked. She started crying and said, "You have no idea how I feel. I'm hurting the most than anyone else possibly could." Excuse me? I replied with, "My baby's cancer is not about you. I need to go." She hung up and that was that. Am I the a-hole for telling her my baby's cancer is not about her? I feel like this is going to be no contact territory at this point. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, and I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'm hurting the most than anyone else possibly could. Seriously? Hurting more than your little one or yourself? Toxic narcissism doesn't even begin to describe your mother-in-law. Best wishes for your little one's recovery. That's exactly what I wanted to say. How could anyone be feeling how my baby's feeling or how I'm feeling? I understand that it's hard and it's depressing. My mom is super sad and feeling terrible, but she still shows up for me. Every day, calls to check in and doesn't get butthurt if I don't answer. She's been very supportive, and maybe that's because I'm her daughter and she knows what I would feel if I had cancer and she was in my shoes. I don't know. Honestly, the only person capable of feeling anything close to the suffering of mom and baby is dad, who can't even be there as a support and has to be away during this time. To imagine she hurts more than her son who can't be there is bonkers. Best wishes for you and yours, and go no contact. You need to focus on you. There's a thing called the rings of something, influence or need or something, where you ask for support outwards of the crisis, but she is expecting support from the people most affected, which is so wrong. Yes, this was my thought. Like, really? My husband hasn't been the most hands-on father since little one was born, but he is her father. I don't know how my mother-in-law somehow thinks her pain and sadness trumps that of her own son. I really can't wrap my mind around that. Yes, I've been reading about the rings of grief. Really good. Not a hole. Refer to ring therapy. It's a great system for demonstrating how support should be handled in situations like this. If your mom is up for it, I'd ask her to be the point of contact for updating family members other than your husband. This will massively reduce the amount of stress you are currently experiencing, as well as what will be added once more people know. Have her be a protective shield so all your energy is focused on yourself and your child. If your mother can't, see if there is someone else that can do it. Someone who will put your needs first and shield you from the bombardment of questions. They can also let others know how they can actually help. Update. Thank you for all the kind responses. I decided to delegate my mother as the person who would update all family, including my husband's. When things get a little more situated, I will probably have my close friend make a Caring Bridge account for me, and my mother can share that with everyone. Also, I think some people forget that my mother is my mother, and we are close. No, I'm not giving her updates daily. Most of the time when she drops off something for me at the hospital, she asks me if I'm okay and offers a lot of hugs and rubs my back, and I cry while she holds me. She's yet to ask anything from me. Therein lies the difference. The relationship I have with my mother-in-law has been strained for some time now. She often believes that I am the one responsible to initiate communication and to foster the relationship between her and myself, and her and my daughter. The effort she has put in over the past year and a half has been minimal, to say the least. But yet, still feels entitled and expects me to visit her home often, call her, update her, text her, etc. For the past month, I have been in and out of the ER and doctor's visits trying to get to the bottom of my baby's back pain, and she's known about these visits, my husband tells her. Not once has she reached out and asked how we were or how I was. So, to those who expect me to treat her equally as my mother, is just really asking too much. I haven't been treated with kindness, respect, or empathy ever since I gave birth. She could have easily made an effort to any degree to love me, and she has made it very clear to me over the year that she doesn't care for me to any capacity. Not as her son's wife, and not as her granddaughter's mother, let alone as her own daughter. Whether she likes it or not, my baby is related to me and I am her mother, and that will never change. She doesn't have to like me, but there does need to be respect, and there hasn't been. So that's currently where we were before my daughter's diagnosis. I'm not close off to reconciliation and healing, but that will also require ownership of the things that have happened and have been said, and respect for me as a person and as a parent moving forward. All things my therapist has suggested and encourages. Edit to Ed. My brother, who is also in the military, sent me 2 meals this weekend via DoorDash. I didn't ask him to, and he didn't even ask me if I needed meals. He just did it. I didn't update him either. Mother-in-law has yet to ask if I needed anything, if my little one is okay, or how we are doing, etc. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for making my mother-in-law cry at her father's funeral? My mother-in-law isn't great. She's snobby, immature, and has always favored her daughters because your son is only your son until he gets a wife. She likes to remind me that she has more than me, and literally waves things in my face and tries to play it off as a joke. She isn't the devil as she can be very nice, but only on her terms. Mother-in-law's father, who I'd only met a couple of times, died recently and mother-in-law demanded that we all go to the funeral. Father-in-law did not want to go and did not think she should go, but mother-in-law said people would talk and pressured us all to attend. We rode together and she was silent the entire car ride, which is weird because she never shuts up. When we got there, we stayed to ourselves and did not speak to her siblings or her mom. I'll explain the quotes later. They had some pictures on display and there was only one family picture that included her. She looked about 12, and it was kind of weird because they were clearly somewhere cold and she was the only one not wearing a coat. She was super, unhealthy thin, and her clothes didn't fit her well. My husband made a comment to me about how strange it was, and one of my mother-in-law's brother overheard and asked if we didn't know that she was the affair baby. And then he laughed and said that that was his parents' agreement. That if his dad had to bring her home, she would never be treated like one of his other kids. My husband went over to father-in-law and mentioned what his uncle had just said and asked if he knew. Father-in-law said of course he knew, and that is why he did not want to go. I didn't realize that mother-in-law was behind me and said that it actually explained a lot. I honestly didn't mean it in a bad way, but it does explain why she's so focused in having things. Mother-in-law started to cry, and I laughed because I am a nervous laugher. Father-in-law got mad and told her they were going and never should have come. I did text her that I am sorry for laughing and explained that it was a response. And she wrote back, "How about you just don't talk about me behind my back?" My husband says I did nothing wrong, but I feel really bad. You're the a-hole. You listened to and actively spread gossip at the funeral of her father. Mother-in-law's brother is a super a-hole here for spreading that. You did a truly awful thing at what might be the most vulnerable a person is in their entire lives, the death of a parent, and made it a time for not only grief, but also shame for her. But did she? My husband made a comment to me about how strange it was. My husband went over to father-in-law and mentioned what his uncle. It sounds like it was her husband, her son, that was discussing this, not Opie. The Opie commented, "I didn't realize that mother-in-law was behind me," and said that it actually explained a lot. But it could actually be interpreted as trying to understand a difficult person, or at a lower level, be quite insulting and rude. It sounds to me that it was her son that was gossiping, not the Opie. She was silent the entire car ride, which is weird because she never shuts up. Nice. Was the snarky comment necessary here? Her dad just died, so that you're thinking like this on that occasion says something. I did text her that I am sorry for laughing and explained that it was a response. You texted her? Like not worth a call or anything. You're the a-hole. I'm sorry she isn't always nice to you. But the way you talk about her, I can imagine your tone with that comment at the funeral. Maybe she deserves some resentment from you, or maybe you're both equally snarky people. But for this here, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Sure, she could be a better mother-in-law. But even an awful mother-in-law shouldn't be laughed at when her family finds out she was mistreated as a child while she's waiting to bury her father. Her brother laughed when he told them about the abusive atmosphere he benefited from and probably participated in. The family had zero shame displaying a picture where the abuse was obvious. Just awful. Yes, that explains a lot, but that comment could have been saved for between Opie and husband later instead of literally right then. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe. Am I the a-hole for moving out when my stepsister ruined my Father's Day gift for my dad? I, female 16, live with my mom, stepdad, and stepsister 18, and stepbrother 20. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 13 years old. We were very close, and his death was a major loss in my life. I wasn't able to keep much of his belongings because of my stepdad's insecurities and lack of sympathy and respect for me and my dad. It's sad to say that Mom moved on relatively fast. My stepsister and I share a room together. My stepbrother had a bigger room because he's the man, and as a result, me and my stepsister are always in conflict. She wants me out during the day as she uses the room as her art studio. She recently accused me of stealing her tools and convinced her dad to get a lock. So now I'm being forcefully locked out and can't get in till after a huge argument and getting Mom involved. My stepsister had an argument with her brother and ruined his gaming console when he was out. He came into the room quietly in the evening, stood by the door and asked me to bring him my stepsister's acrylic paint set. I asked if he got permission. He said yes, so I gave it to him and went back to study. At dinner, my stepsister came downstairs, yelling that her brother had access to her room and ruined her paint set. There was a lot of yelling and arguing. Stepdad asked how my stepbrother walked into the room when it was supposed to be locked. My stepbrother admitted I helped him out and brought the paint set to him. My stepsister went off on me, called me an accomplice, then ran upstairs and took the gift I prepared for my dad for Father's Day. I picked up flowers I planted from our small garden that I take care of by myself and prepared a nice wooden letter-shaped pot. Used my dad's first initial and filled it with the flowers I picked and decorated it with ribbons. It wasn't that good, but it was like a floral letter. I planned to visit his grave and put the gift there, but she damaged it to pieces. It was completely ruined. I yelled at her and kept crying. Mom and stepdad gave her harsh punishment and thought it was fixable, but I was so done. I called my uncle who came and berated my mom and stepdad. Stepdad offered to fix it and punish his stepdaughter harder, but I packed my things to go with my uncle. My mom begged me to stay, but I refused and didn't respond when she kept calling, saying she did nothing to deserve to be shunned by me and my uncle, who told the family about what happened. The family told Mom not to come visit on Father's Day and are angry with her because I moved out over this. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your mom failed you. She failed to take your feelings into account after your dad died. Failed to stand up to her husband when he failed to respect you and your dad. Failed to protect you from his daughter and her unreasonable demands. The only thing both of them did right was punishing your stepsister for destroying the Father's Day gift you made. That isn't enough to make up for all of the other crap. If you stayed, I think your stepsister would have found some way to punish you for her getting in trouble for destroying the gift you made. Stay away if you can. Yes, your mother deserves to be in trouble with the rest of the family for everything that has happened to you. Agree with one small modification. For everything that has happened to you. For allowing everything that has happened to you. Not the a-hole. She has done nothing to deserve to be shunned by me. Except ignore OP. Allow stepsister to abuse OP. Allow stepdad to be sexist to both of them. Stepbrother gets the bigger room because he's a man? WTF. Disregarded OP's feelings at every turn and allowed stepdad to get rid of her father's things she wanted to keep. She's right. She has done nothing, absolutely nothing she should have done to avoid this outcome, which surely would have come the day Opie turned 18 anyway. Not the a-hole. Being locked out of your own room is unacceptable. While your stepfamily is awful, it's your mom who is the real a-hole. She should be advocating and standing up for you. Being locked out and not getting to keep your dad's stuff is completely on her. I'm sure she had no problem spending or getting your stepdad to agree to keep any stepsister benefit she gets for you, for your dad having passed away. I'm still trying to wrap my head around any sane mother who would allow their daughter to be locked out of their bedroom for any length of time. I've heard of removing the door or lock, still not cool, but locking them out? Wow, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry that you lost your dad, and I'm sorry that you have an insensitive mom. If you can stay with your uncle, I would. Your mom has not considered your feelings regarding your father, and the fact that she does nothing about how your stepfather and stepsister treat you is truly awful. Keep your distance. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for walking out after I opened the gift my stepson brought me for Father's Day? I, male 37, have two stepkids, Gina 11 and Brian 16. My stepdaughter is the apple of my eye. I love her to pieces. But my stepson has a difficult personality. Never does anything with us. Never lets me help him with anything and keeps his distance from me. He also never tells me about his problems or achievements, and it's been difficult trying to establish a good bond with him like my stepdaughter. My wife says that's his nature, so I should stop pressuring him. Till he recently started spending time with me, but every time he'd pull a nasty prank. Like replace my shampoo, or ruin my credit card, or ruin my tires/rear lights. This caused a rift between us, especially since my wife says those are pranks. But I was worried for my safety and got paranoid from getting in the car or going to the supermarket with a ruined credit card. So I kept my distance. Father's Day, I took my wife and my stepson and stepdaughter to our parents' house for breakfast. I received a beautiful gift from my stepdaughter and didn't expect my stepson to get me anything as always. But he did bring me a gift. It looked like a nice gift in a box and was beautifully wrapped and introduced. I was so excited and happy because all I was thinking of was not the gift itself, but the fact my stepson is finally letting me be part of his life and remembering me on Father's Day, so it meant the world to me. That was already my gift, but I couldn't wait to open it and show him my appreciation and gratitude. Well, I opened the box and saw a stinky old sock of mine that I've lost a couple of months ago placed inside. The look in my face said it all. My stepson encouraged me to show everybody what he's got me. I didn't want to, but my father-in-law took the box and pulled out the sock. He looked confused, and my stepson started laughing hysterically. So did others. It was an absolute horrible moment. I wish I could just jump out the window and run away from embarrassment. I just got up and walked out the room silently while my stepson was laughing behind. My wife came to tell me that I overreacted massively and my stepson was just messing with me, meaning it was a prank. But he embarrassed me in front of the entire family. And frankly, I don't give a crap about the gift. But what he did felt so humiliating I almost cried. He had just said that I shouldn't have walked out like that and made it awkward, since I'm the adult and should have handled this better. I left my in-laws' house and my wife and kids are still there. My wife is upset that I left and wanted to get some time alone and a good cry, and remember my dad and try to keep my mind off what happened earlier. Am I the a-hole for this? Not the a-hole. At first, I was thinking he was being 16, but the more I read, I'm horrified. And your wife is enabling this by taking his side constantly and allowing it to go unpunished. The kid needs therapy. These are not pranks, and you shouldn't have to put up with this. Your wife needs to change the way she handled him, or I would be out the door. Not the a-hole. What prank involves damaging credit cards and cars? She needs a reality check. Seriously, Opie, your stepson is either a sociopath or a major a-hole. Your wife is an enabler. And honestly, I don't think I'd put up with this poor treatment. Stepson or not. I think it's harmful to diagnose people over the internet, especially with stuff as misunderstood as cluster B disorders. The kid's an A regardless, though. Not the a-hole. And I'm sorry your wife is enabling her child to be disrespectful, mean, and a little turd. Your wife is the a-hole here. The stepson does what he is allowed to do. You need to address this with your wife. Like now. And she needs to rein in her little devil. It's not cute, and it's not pranks. Unless you and your wife are on the same page, things will only get worse. Perhaps it's time to walk away. Your wife doesn't respect you at all. Your wife is laughing at this BS? Leave. Not the a-hole. However, your wife, her family, and her son are all a-holes. Not the a-hole. You left a situation that was meant to embarrass you. Your stepson is a jerk. Messing with your credit card and your car earned pranks. It's malicious vandalism. And the fact his mom doesn't say anything to him is ridiculous. If he did that stuff to anyone outside the family, he'd get reamed out if not charged with a crime for the stuff with the car. Take your time and have a sit down with your wife and tell her you aren't overreacting. She's enabling her son to be a jerk. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I'm never sharing Father's Day again? My parents divorced when I was 2. My mom remarried when I was 5. My older brother and sister and I split time between both homes equally as little kids. It was tough. Our mom would call them both our dads, despite us never calling her husband dad or stepdad. At first, I was going to refer to him as my stepdad, but he was always a domineering prick. Our mom says that's who he is and how he expresses himself, but I don't like being treated like I'm in the army. That's his background. One time, he and my brother had a huge fight because he asked my brother why he left his bed half-made, but he did so in this really strong way. like barking orders at someone. And my brother told him he had no right to talk to him like that, and he wasn't going to answer unless he asked in a better way. My brother got grounded for that because he actually followed through and refused to answer. For me, it was hardest when my half-siblings were born, and my mom would tell me the reason to say I have two dads is because he was their dad. And while I might not love him the same as mine, we had that shared connection now more than ever. But his personality makes him hard to love, honestly. He's intimidating, and not someone I ever grew to enjoy having in my life. So when I was 14, 2 years ago, I chose to stay with my dad all the time, and it caused some fights, but never more than now. My mom always insisted on sharing Father's Day between our dad and her husband. She even gave up some of Mother's Day to get it. None of us, me or my siblings, ever wanted it, and neither did our dad. But the judge said seeing as she was willing to share Mother's Day, he ordered it, at least until it was changed when I went to live with my dad. That year we were fighting, so Father's Day wasn't pushed. But last year it was, and this year, yeah. So I told my mom I'm not splitting it anymore, that I'm celebrating with the only father I have, and that's how I will celebrate it going forward. She was so pissed. She told me I was being ungrateful and mean-spirited to a man who loves me as his own, and that all three step-kids doing this is a big middle finger to all step-parents, and how most kids would be grateful for a man like him. I told her that didn't change things for me. She's even trying to get my dad to send me over in the afternoon. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Tell her that the fact that all three step-kids have rejected him shows that he's the common denominator and where the problem lies. Not an a-hole. Yeah, if a few people you meet are a-holes, it's probably a them problem. If everyone you meet is an a-hole, it's probably a you problem. Not an a-hole. People tend to get to treat my kids the way they deserve, but let's dig into this one in more depth. He was always a domineering prick. Our mom says that's who he is and how he expresses himself, but I don't like being treated like I'm in the army. That's his background. We get so many posts on the sub where various family or friends defend a-holes because that's just how they are. No, how they are is an a-hole, and that's not okay. Let's dig in further. Being in the army doesn't make you act like an a-hole, but the service do tend to attract small people who hide behind rank to act big. No one became an a-hole by joining the army. The army is just a friendlier place for a-holes. I was in the Navy, I understand this quite well. Bob Ross was a master sergeant in the Air Force. Proof that your background doesn't define you. This is a big middle finger to all step-parents, and how most kids would be grateful for men like him. Nope, this is a big middle finger to a man who needs to be told so. No kid needs an a-hole in their life, and your siblings said you came to the right conclusion. Frankly, your stepdad sounds like someone who wants to die alone. I would get smacked upside the head as a kid for doing big swipes to clean a counter instead of tiny clockwise circles to clean. Army stepdad would always reprimand us for not cleaning the army way. And even as kids, we were like, dude, we weren't in the army. Not today, Hall. You are 16 now, so old enough to decide who you want to stay with. Not today, Hall. He may love you like his own, but acting like a drill sergeant to his kids is the wrong way to show it. He's driven you and your siblings away, and your mom needs to accept it. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not being interested in being an aunt to and spending money on my brother's stepdaughter that I barely know and barely see? My brother Tyler is divorced, who had a daughter Ella, 7, and a son Noah, 3, with his ex-wife. A few months after separating last year, he got together with Sarah, who has a 5-year-old daughter named Olivia. Tyler has embraced Olivia as his own, which he should, given that Olivia spends about 80% of her time with him, but is starting to get a bit upset that I'm not doing the same. I live interstate for work, and in February used a couple of vacation days and flew 2 hours each way for Ella's birthday party. I plan to do the same for Noah's birthday in September. But Tyler and Sarah are upset. I am not prepared to do that in July for Olivia's 6th birthday. I'm happy to use a couple of vacation days and spend money for my own niece or nephew, but not really for what is really a random child to me. I've only met Olivia twice, and that was at Ella's party. I stayed at my parents' house while in town, and when we all went out for dinner the next night before I went home. Olivia doesn't know who I am. He also got upset I didn't want to buy a big present for Olivia because I bought Christmas presents for Ella and Noah but not Olivia. I made sure to wait until Olivia had gone to her dad's before giving them to the kids. I have nothing against Olivia. She's an innocent child. I'll obviously be polite to her when she's around, and I give Ella and Noah their presents privately. But at the end of the day, Olivia is not my niece, and I don't feel anything for her. I haven't bonded with her since she was a baby like I did with Ella and Noah, and I've only met her twice in passing. I don't FaceTime her 3 times a week like I do Ella and Noah. She doesn't come with my parents to visit me 3 times a year like Ella and Noah do. Olivia has her own other side of the family like Ella and Noah have me and my parents. And I think that while Tyler signed up to treat Olivia as his own when he made a choice to get into a relationship with Sarah, he didn't sign me and my money up for that. I'm not really a kid person. I love my niece and nephew because they are mine, but just don't feel anything for Olivia because she's basically a stranger to me. I'm not really interested in spending money and using vacation leave in what is basically a random kid to me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If Tyler and Sarah split up, there's no reason to see Olivia again. But Ella and Noah will always be your blood. But if the relationship survives, are you seriously saying this is how you are going to keep treating her? And what if they had a kid together? Will you still leave Olivia out? You're the adult. You are going to have to make more of an effort. Not the a-hole for not wanting to use vacation days and spend your money flying interstate to go to the birthday party of a child you barely know. But I do think the way you talk about her like she's an unwelcome addition to the family is kind of horrible. Info. How long has your brother been living with his girlfriend? Since January. He separated from his ex-wife in November. That's it? I'd be the exact same. Wouldn't waste my time being an aunt, and I would never give up my holiday time for them.